Today we are discussing about theileriosis in sheep and goat. It is observed in small ruminants very frequently. Theileria hirsi and Theileria ovis, these two species of Theileria are present in the sheep and goats. This is purely tick-borne infection. Mouth parts of ticks are having the different stages of the Theileria, and once it bites to the host, then it transmits for the further stages of the Theileria. But however, a direct seeding with the needles of the physicians, sometimes the direct blood to tissue contact may lead to the direct seeding of the infection from one animal to another animal. Then mechanical transmission, sometimes by the blood sucking flies, and placental transmission is also known to occur in case of sheep and goat for the theileriosis. These are the very common predisposing factor. One of the important factor is the stress. Any type of stress, transportation stress, grazing stress, environmental stress, that lead to the release of cortisols and immunosuppression occurs, and those pyroplasm or the seizones which are present in the dormant stage may get aggravated, and the clinical signs of theileria can be noticed. Then overcrowding also lead to the release of cortisols. Then worm load also decrease the immunity of that individuals. Then one of the common findings that observed around the flock of the sheep and goat, that visiting farmers or the visiting sheep and goats or the other ruminants, when they come to the vicinity of the farms, will share the ticks around the farm, and that ticks may lead to the infection to the in-house infection from that visitors, sheep and goats. Then hot and humid climate or hot and dry climate is a very important climate for the transmission of this theileriosis in case of sheep and goat. In this case, the breeding places of the ticks get activated, or the more breeding can be observed in the hot, humid as well as hot, dry climate. Then one of the important factors, that is the cracks in the walls of the farm, then mangers, the shelters, wherever these ticks get a space for the hiding. So that will be the breeding place for the ticks, and that can lead to the transmission of infection to the animals which are present in that particular farm. Then presence of ticks on the trees, shrubs, barks of the trees in the grazing areas, means not only the stall fed animals, but the grazing animals are also equally affected by the theileriosis because of the presence of different types of ticks in the shrubs, herbs, then the barks of the trees, and that may lead to the get entry over the body of the animals. They get stick to the body of the animals of the sheep and goat, and finally they will lead to the clinical infection of the theileriosis in sheep and goat. If you see the life cycle, you can see the two parts of the life cycle. One part is within the tick body, and another in the animal or the host body. So different progenies of the seizones can be observed. Different types of stages of the theileria can be observed. So from the ticks, digestive tract of the ticks, then the pyroplasm, or sorry, seizones will enter into the mouth parts of the sheep and mouth parts of the ticks, and from mouth parts it will enter into the body of the host. So sporozoites will be released in the tissue or the wherever the ticks get attached to the body. Then from that sporozoites, it will invade the lymphocytes. From lymphocytes, they will convert into the seizones. And from once the lymphocyte get infected, lymphoblast will be developed, and there are cloning, or the progenies of the lymphocytes will be released, and that lead to the merogony. And from merogony, merozoites are released, and these merozoites will infect the RBC. Circulating RBCs will be infected by the merozoites, and the pyroplasms observed in the RBCs or the erythrocytes. So this is a stage where we can collect the blood and we can observe the pyroplasm in the erythrocytes, and the same type of pyroplasm will be consumed by the again ticks, and the further life cycle of the theileriosis is get continued. So this is about the life cycle. This is again the same thing, life cycle, a little bit color pictures are over here. Now going towards the pathogenesis. So first the ticks will be attached to the body of the host. Then there is a release of seizones from the mouth parts of the ticks. Then from that particular area, maybe the ear pinna, maybe the inguinal region, the these scisons will be taken by the local lymph nodes. They reaches to the local lymph nodes. Once they reaches to the local lymph nodes, B and T lymphocytes are affected. Not only the B lymphocytes, so, T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes both are affected by the Theileria. Then organisms or the scisons will multiply in the lymphocytes. After that, there is a proliferative stage of the lymphocytes. So lymphocytes convert into lymphoblast, and the clonal expansion will be takes place, and merogony will be developed. After merogony is developed, merozoites are released, and once the merozoites are released in the blood, the merozoites will invade the circulating RBCs, and there is a pyroplasm stage, and pyroplasm will invade the RBC, and various stages of pyroplasm can be noticed in the RBCs. After that, parasitemia will be developed. That parasitemia lead to the high fever in that animal. Then removal of infected RBC by the mononuclear phagocytic system, that is MPS system of the spleen and lymph node, that lead to the progressive anemia, jaundice. Then there is a decrease in the colloidal osmotic pressure that may lead to the edema of the various parts of body. Then secondary complications like pneumonia, hypoxia will be developed. After that, tissue hypoxia, interstitial edema, immunosuppression, then damage to the vascular endothelial cells due to the liver dysfunction and release of the cytokinins. Then abomasal ulceration will be there, extensive bleeding through the ulcers, and sometimes there will be the clinical signs of melena will be observed. Then further, finally there is a development of severe anemia, and finally death is observed because of the severe hypoxemia, the loss of oxygen into the tissue, and finally death is occurred due to the hypoxemia. Clinical signs, one is the acute one, another is the chronic one, third one is the subclinical. Acute theileria is characterized by the high fever, maybe the 106, 107 degree Fahrenheit. The respiratory distress will be there, coughing will be there, frothy salivation is there, ecteric mucous membranes are there, selective anorexia, sometimes there is a colic, in severe cases melena will be there, sometimes hard impacted fecal pellets are there. Then enlargement of the superficial lymph nodes can be observed, maybe the inguinal lymph nodes, maybe the subscapular, suprascapular lymph nodes, and by auscultation we are getting the typical tachycardia sounds from the heart. Then chronic theileria, there would be the intermittent fever, respiratory distress will be there, coughing will be there, the frothy salivation, ecteric mucous membranes are there, selective anorexia will be there, colic also there, melena, hard impacted fecal pellets, enlargement of superficial lymph nodes will be there, tachycardia, and one of the consistent finding was there is there the wasting and decreased body score. The animal look very lean, and there would be the loss of fatty tissues as well as the skin height type of appearance may be observed, and collectively we can say there is a decrease in the body score. Then subclinical theileria, it is quite dangerous because there is no fever, and sometimes it may not be understood by the clinicians. So no, there is no fever, coughing will be there, frothy salivation will be there, ecteric mucous membranes are there, eyes are sunken, selective anorexia will be there, definitely the superficial lymph nodes are enlarged, one tachycardia is there, progressive wasting is there. One of the consistent finding was observed that unistress, the animals which are suffering from the subclinical theileria, they are showing the symptoms or they are not coming to the heat, that is unistress. Then there would be the repeat breeding, they will become on the heat at the typical period, but they are not able to conceive. So that is the repeat breeding kind of observed in the sheep and goats. Then these animals are prone to any type of respiratory as well as digestive diseases. Any kind of secondary complications can be observed in case of the subclinical theileria in case of sheep and goat. Clinical pathology includes anemia, maybe mild type of anemia, hemoglobin level may be 5 to 8 gram%. Then if the moderate anemia is there, the hemoglobin levels will be decreased down from 3 to 5 gram%. And in case of severe anemia, we can see the hemoglobin level, they can drop less than 3 gram%. Then increased serum bilirubin percentage, SGPT will be high, lymphocytosis is there, thrombocytosis will be there, presence of organism or the pyroplasm in blood smear, and KBB, the coach blue bodies can be observed in the lymph nodes biopsies. or we can get KBB circulating KBB in the circulating blood also. Postmortem examination, icterus will be there, enlarged lymph nodes are there, lung edema, hemorrhages on endocardium, epicardium, liver necrosis, yellow discoloration of the liver, variety of punch type of ulcers can be noticed in the abomasum. So we can see the different postmortem lesions over here. So lung edema will be there. This lung edema will be observed because of the decrease in the colloidal osmotic pressure because of the anemia. Yellow discoloration of the different connective tissues, especially elastic fibers. Wherever the elastic fibers are there, all these elastic fibers become turned into the icteric one, or we can say this could be the jaundice. So icteric aorta and trachea. Here again we can see some of the connective tissue which are near the subcutaneous tissue or the chondrocytes. They will look yellowish or dark yellow in color. Then subcutaneous tissues are also or the musculature around the subcutaneous tissue is turned into the yellowish one, or the jaundice we can say. Then aorta, means aorta is having the large amount of the elastic tissue, so that is also turned into the icteric. Then hemorrhages on the endocardium, you can see the endocardium will showing the different kinds of hemorrhages. Then multifocal necrosis of the liver, various stages of Theileria may lead to the different kind of necrosis in the liver tissues. So maybe the small type of necrosis or the extensive. This could be the extensive type of necrosis can be observed in the liver tissues. Then kidney also become icteric. Icteric kidney, elastic fiber generally they are present near the hilus. They will be become icteric or the yellowish in color. Again, the same type of things can be observed over here. Then abomasal hemorrhages, internal hemorrhages can be observed from, if we see abomasum from outside, we can see a blackish or tarry color material in the lumen of the abomasum. And if we open the same abomasum, we will get a lot of dark chocolate color type of material in the abomasum. And the extensive type of ulceration, deep type of ulceration, punch type of ulcers can be observed in the folds of abomasum. Here is again you can see the different types of ulcers, some small, some large ulcers are there. Some early stages we can see punch type of ulcers at lower intensity. Again, here also we can see the punch type of ulcers at the lower intensity in the abomasal mucosa. Here again we can see different punch type of ulcers over here. Again, the another case of punch type of ulcers in the abomasum. So after postmortem lesions, we can see how to diagnose the Theileria. So it's based on the clinical science, hematology, biochemistry, lymph node aspiration. If anybody wants, can go for ELISA, go for PCR and postmortem examination. These are the tools which can be used for the final diagnosis of the Theileriosis. Then blood smear examination will reveal multiple pyroplasm in the RBCs. So these are the RBCs having the different types of pyroplasms, maybe the ring shape, then the elongated. So different kinds of pyroplasm can be noticed in the RBCs. Here again, we can see the different types of pyroplasms. They are present in the RBCs. Then KBBs, coach blue bodies, they can be noticed in the circulating lymphocytes. Maybe the small, tiny purple color dots can be observed. Sometimes these dots are come together and they form a big scisons in the cytoplasm of lymphocytes. Like this, we can see the lymphocytes will having the multiple scisons in the lymphocytes. So beyond that, the complications are noticed. The Theileria generally is not observed as a single disease. Very rarely it can be observed as a single disease, but many times the Theileria is complicated by the many parasitic diseases or other secondary complications. So that includes anaplasmosis is there, Babesia, Ehrlichia, due to the presence of multiple ticks in the body of the on the body of that particular individual or the host. So anaplasma may complicate with the Theileria, Babesia may get complicated with the Theileria, Ehrlichia may complicate with the Theileria. So because of the presence of different types of ticks, there may be the harboring of the different types of infection. Then Because of the immunosuppression and lung edema, there are chances of HS or the hemorrhagic septicemia can be observed due to the subclinical Theileria or the chronic Theileria. Then PPR may be complicate this disease because of the immunosuppression once again. Then hepatic encephalopathy may be observed. Animal may show the clinical signs of the circling or the sudden falling down because of the extensive necrosis of the liver, and that lead to the sudden hypoxemia as well as the hypoglycemia that lead to the hepatic encephalopathy. Then enteric infection due to changes in the ammonia levels of the intestines. So because of the melena or the bleeding in the intestines, the ammonia level of the intestine will be changed, and that lead to the secondary infection, maybe the enteritis in the particular animals. Then uremia, because of the extensive bleeding into the abomasum, that lead to the accumulation of NPN in the blood circulation, and that may lead to the uremia in some of the cases. Then treatment, basically buparvacon is a drug of choice for the Theileria at the rate 2.5 milligram per kg body weight, and should be repeated for the after 72 hours. If it is necessary, sometime we have to give 2 or 3 doses of the buparvacon to get complete recovery from the Theileriosis. Then oxytetracycline may be the 5 milligrams to 10 milligram per kg body weight IV, or if you want to give long acting, we can go for the 20 milligram per kg body weight intramuscular. Along with that, we have to give hematinics, then H2 blockers. H2 blockers are needed to give to stop the abomasal bleeding, especially because they already due to the Theileria there is development of the different ulcers, and if we are not giving H2 blockers, the ulcers may get aggravated and extensive bleeding may be observed. So for that reason, we have to give H2 blockers along with the other treatments. Then hemostatic agents, because as we know, Theileria may lead to the abomasal ulcers. It's better to give hemostatic agents. Then obviously liver tonic should be given to the animals. Then second, antibiotics. Along with oxytetracycline, we have to give another antibiotic which can prevent the pneumonia, because pneumonia or enteritis. Accordingly, we can select the antibiotics along with those antibiotics which can give good effect along with the oxytetracycline. So the second antibiotic is most important for the control of the pneumonia condition in the Theileriosis. Then avoid saline, especially in severe anemia. Generally, farmers will say that the animal is not eating since last 2 days or 3 days. So generally, clinicians are giving saline, and especially when salines are given suddenly within 1 hour or 2 hours, death may be observed, because this is observed because of the, as lung is already affected by the lung edema, and if we are giving the excess of saline, so there is again the change in the hypoxia, or the hypoxia will be aggravated, and finally lung edema condition will be become more intense, and that may lead to the death in the animals because of the saline whenever the animals are suffering from the severe anemia. The control of ticks is a basic thing for the controlling the Theileria in either in the grazing animals or in the stall-fed animals. Ticks may be controlled by the dipping, spraying, or the giving the injection of the ivermectins. Then cracks and crevices which are present in the farm or the breeding places of the ticks should be destroyed either by spraying or burning with the flame guns. Then destruction of the tick breeding places, burning with the flame guns. Then sometimes maybe use some chemicals, sidal drugs like permethrin, cypermethrin, deltamethrin, that can be used for the control of the ticks. One of the common finding that I could observe for the relapse of the infection is when the animals are infected by Theileria, and if the ticks are removed manually, there are chances of again reinfection of the Theileria. It was the observation, and it was 100% true that if we are remove the ticks manually, so it that may happen by the pressure of the thumbs, the material which has been consumed by the ticks again get regurgitated into the body of the host, and that lead to the infection. After again the 4 or 5 days, animal will show the symptoms of the clinical Theileria. So I will advise to all of you that don't remove the ticks manually from the infected animals, or those animals are having the clinical signs of Theileria. It's better to give either injection or don't remove the ticks manually. It may lead to the relapsation of the theileriosis in case of the all animals, including sheep and goat, as well as in the large animals. Thank you very much.